Hey KP, this is Natalie Callback with KP, as most of you know her. She's from RubberMoon, an amazing company that I'm very, very happy to work with. Um, so RubberMoon is the company that makes my rubber stamp designs. I had a little glimpse of TC, which is KP's husband, who is also in the company. We will get to that later. He's a rock star as well as KP. So KP, as I said, I'm really happy. You guys are in Missouri, right?
Yep.
Whew. No, I'm kidding.
But you could name another place and
No. So I thought it would be interesting so when I was doing my last stamp release, I have done a couple now with RubberMoon. I got some texts from KP and also emails from her daughter Maxie. And once in a while, there was a photo of the progress of my stamps, which somehow they never have done before, but now I got them. And I think even TC mailed me once and he said, and now it's here. Yeah. And it was so cool. I can't even describe how amazing it was, because it was like the birth of my stamps, right? It just made me so happy, but also understanding. I mean, I know a little bit about the process of how to make rubber stamps. Obviously not enough to do it myself, no, I'm kidding. There are better people, but it made me so appreciative, even more appreciative of what you guys do. And as we Germans say, we all want to know how sausages are made in Germany. And I'm sure that people who love rubber stamps also want to know how rubber stamps are made. So that's why we're doing this today, the behind the scenes. And so I give it over to KP, and I want to know, KP, how did you start making stamps?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'll try to give you the condensed version, but so in the 90s, early 90s, I got huge into rubber stamps. I fell in love with rubber stamping, and I just couldn't get enough. And then my mom was the one who was like, you should make your own, or that kind of let's make stamps together. I don't know why she wanted to start a family business, and somehow my mom and dad, because of my love of stamping, started looking into it, and then they started a rubber stamp company. Just sort of on my mom's whim, really. And then she said, and you will be a stamp designer. And I was like, what? Oh, I can't design stamps. And she's like, oh, no, you will. And you can and you will. So I did that for them for, about 7 years. And did pretty kind of, things were different then. Obviously, we didn't have social media the way we do now. Most companies didn't even have websites. My parents' company was one of the very first to ever even have a website. And so I did, and I kind of did what I do now. I taught and developed and, traveled. And they had other stamp designers, too, besides me. And then just throughout, some sad and unfortunate things happened, and my parents are no longer with us. But so I took a long hiatus, I guess you could say. And then I ended up going back to school in 2007. I went back to school to get my degree in art and in graphic design. And so then when I was done in 2011, I graduated, and I said, oh, well, now what, now what am I going to do? I have this degree, but I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, And I started doing hand carved stamps, and I was selling them on Etsy, and I was selling for just single hand carved stamps on Etsy, I was doing pretty well. And so I ended up reaching out to an old colleague that I knew, or, an old friend that I knew through my parents' company, and asking her if she would just design some of the stamps for me, or not just, but, produce, so I didn't have to hand carve all of them all the time. And she said, oh, I would love to do that for you, but I'm getting ready to close RubberMoon, and I'm going to move to Panama. Her and her husband were retiring. So literally in that conversation, I said, well, do you want to sell it instead of close it? And she said, okay. And so I bought RubberMoon pretty much in that phone conversation. So that was in 2012. And it was like riding a bike. You know how they say, like, they want to know how sausages are made? It's like, it just came back pretty natural. And for some reason, I just knew it was right. I don't know how I can even tell you, but I just knew in my heart that it was the right thing for me. And, like, I'd never looked back. And then it has grown enough to where, my husband, in 2000, what year because that was 2012, like at the end or in 2014, he lost his job. And by that point, I already knew that I needed help desperately. So he came on board with me, and now our daughter works for us also. So
that's pretty amazing. What an amazing story to no, it's super interesting too. So we talked a little bit about it before. So you have TC and you have Maxi there. So, but how many people are involved in making a stamp at RubberMoon? Like, I know it's hard to count, but like a rough idea.
Well, so Maxi and TC work here pretty much full time, or full time. Well, not pretty much. They work full time. Well, Maxi only is here 3 days a week, but she works from home 2 days a week, and then TC's here and I are both here all the time. But then we also have 3 other very part-time employees, that come in just maybe a few hours a week to help with certain things, because so to answer your question, so obviously, like, I can make a stamp from beginning to end all by myself. Like, I can do it without any help, but that's if I just want to go. Like, okay, so how many people are involved in this process? I would say it takes about 3 people to fulfill an order. But the actual process of making the stamp from beginning to end, which we can go, if you want me to kind of tell you the steps and talk about them, I can, because there is one thing that we do that involves another company altogether, is only part of the process that we don't do ourselves in-house. Okay, so that is when you submit your artwork, we make a plate from that artwork, and it gets made into a metal engraving, and that metal engraving is what turns that we make the mold. And we make our own molds, but we don't make the metal engraving. So when I get the art, I set it up, and then I send it away, and then we get a metal etching. So that is one person, one outside person, but in-house. So then TC makes the actual molds once we get the metal plate back. Pretty much he's the only one that makes the matrix boards, which are them. And then once those get pressed, those we can use forever, pretty much. Like, you never really use the metal engraving again unless your board or your mold breaks, which is not, that's not that common.
Yeah.
So then you have your mold, and then it gets pressed and then cut and then mounted on whatever kind of cushion, depending on if it's going to be wood mounted or if it's going to be mounted. And then obviously the wood mounted get indexed. Like when I say index, that means the stamp of, so like here's a rubber stamp. The picture on the front is the index. Okay. So somebody has to hand stamp every one, or it gets packaged if it's cling. So how many times do you think you have, like, okay, so to try to kind of like say, so you have the mold, you pour the rubber, right? And then a sheet of rubber. Yeah, so you put a sheet of rubber to the mold, and then you press it in a heat, in a hot vulcanizer, and then when it comes out, you just have like the plain rubber dies. I have one around here. So this is on cling cushion, but you would just have this rubber piece, and then we mount it to the cushion and then cut it.
And that's all hand cut.
Yes, everything is like literally everything is done by hand. We don't even have we have 2 rubber presses. but both of them are manual. We have not. One day, I hope to get to the point where we can get a bigger press and one that is not a hand crank. It would be awesome to have a push button. That's our dream. But anyway, yes, it's a manual. Like we have to actually crank it up and press it to about a few thousand pounds.
So about 12 times, at least,
Yeah.
before. Like 12 steps and 12 times, that's more than laundry.
Oh, yeah. It is.
No, I'm just kidding. But it's like,
I make a lot more stamps than I ever do laundry.
But like when sometimes you're like, do I have this piece again in my hand? How many times do I have to touch it? I mean, you won't have that feeling, but I'm saying
Right.
that's a lot of times that you have to actually physically do something.
Yeah, so anytime anybody who orders RubberMoon stamps, when you get that and you hold it in your hand, know that I have, or one of us has lovingly fondled your stamp many times before you.
Exactly.
But we don't stamp it, so that's, it's still very fresh and new when it comes to.
I mean, that's I think is one of the things that I find so amazing, because you're like, these are actual people did something manual several times to make this stamp to where it gets to on my desk or my workbench to use it, which is pretty amazing, right? So
yeah, and it's one reason. I mean, I will say that I feel like, and not just our stamp, but any stamps that you would buy from a U.S. based company, especially if it's kind of a mom and pop, type of business. I mean, it's very labor intensive, but it's also really I think there's such a special feeling when you get them, because that it has really been, it's almost like a little piece of art by itself without even then what it gets to go do.
Right.
When I see the stamps, like whether they're packaged, and I do have this special affinity for wood mounted. I think they're just beautiful.
Yeah, me too.
Even almost like little works of art,
Yeah.
and there's something very tactile about them, the way they feel in your hand. And, so I think that is one really nice thing about this particular item as a consumer product, because it is very, it's just a feel good thing. And it's very, I don't know.
One of the things that I find so wonderful working with you as an artist is when you work with a bigger company that maybe produces manufactures things outsourced, let's say overseas, right? They usually, the way how that works is they have like one run. They have the plate made somewhere in a different country, and then they have the stems made in a different country, and it's in a very big factory, and they say, make this stamp 1,000 times. And once the stamp is sold the 1,000 times, then that will be it. They won't make it anymore. And with a company like yours, you have the molds. You can actually, I mean, I know you retire sometimes stamps, but like you can actually go back and make that one stamp that someone set their heart out to have, and it will never totally vanish unless really there's no, for some reason, you retire it or whatever, but possibly the run that a stamp design can have with a company like yours is a way longer time than a certain amount of times, with a big company. How many of those metal plates do you think you have?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I should actually kind of know. I mean, I shouldn't know the exact number, but I should kind of know just based on the amount of, and because I make all the plates, so numbers wise, oh gosh.
Do you think you have like 100 plates, 200 plates?
You probably have 1,000.
That's an insane amount of plates.
Yeah, it's because, remember that RubberMoon was a pre-existing company. So whenever I bought RubberMoon, and she had already been in business almost 20 or about 20 years at that point. I think 19 years when I bought it. So she already had a lot, Every plate is going to hold pretty much a minimum of 4 images. That's for big stamps too.
Right.
So anywhere from 4 to like 20 images. So that's it's a lot. And I would have around approximately 3,000 images right now.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how long, roundabout? I mean, I kind of know, but how long does it time-wise take roundabout from, let's say, you have the digital or drawn design? I know that's a big difference. Let's say you have a digital design, because Natalie sends you digital designs most often.
That are always so perfect.
Thank you. So
you am so much.
From there to a working stamp, how long approximately does it take to make a working stamp?
Well, if for the fresh image, so like if it's never been a stamp,
Yes.
I always ask for 8 weeks, only because and it wouldn't so if you wanted to do a rush order, like say you said, I really need these stamps as soon as possible. I mean, I could do it in about 10 days without breaking my neck. But I always ask for 2 months, because there's going to be times when I'm going to email and say, hey, we make this change? Or, hey, can it be this size? Or what about this? Or what, so I just, and then because there's a lot to it that doesn't have to really do with production, we still have to name and number everything. And then we also have to get it into production. So the first runs just take a lot more thought and a lot more care, because the numbering is what I won't lie to you, it kills me every time. And that can take a whole day or 2 just for numbering. And especially if you only have 5 images, then that's great. But if you are coming out with like this last launch of yours, I think was like almost 40 images, I think.
I know.
And so if you're numbering and you make any mistake, oh my God, then it just throws everything off. And it's a lot of times I have bald spots right after from like pulling out my hair, because I'm the worst, and I'll repeat a number, and then that just throws everything off, and you have to, but anyway, blah, blah, blah. So I asked for 8 weeks for a launch, but honestly, we could get it done within probably 2 weeks. Now, if you went and say you just want to order stamps from RubberMoon, we just ask for 7 to 10 business days, just to be sure. Now, normally we ship much quicker than that, but we always ask for that window of time, because everything is made to order. We do not carry inventory.
Which I think makes sense. If people heard what you said before, that, the way how the stamps have to be made, and then, you have to store it somewhere too, and it's like 3,000 or more images that are right now on your website. You're a small company. You don't have an ginormous plant with a ginormous warehouse with little zippy cars going around picking up your... Not yet, but no, I'm saying, that is...
and also just economically for us, we're a small business,
Exactly.
I cannot even imagine making up 2 dozen stamps, and that is not a good seller. And then all my cling and my rubber is sitting there on the shelf on a stamp that isn't moving, when I have other stamps that are, best sellers. I could have put wood and rubber or whatever to the one. So it just economically.
Exactly. But you also have to have all the other materials, which brings me back to one thing that you had that problem just recently, that one component of your of the stamp wasn't produced, or there were some problems in getting it. And then you have that problem that you're like, if you would have used everything, up for stuff that doesn't sell at that moment. I think it was around the holidays, the winter holidays. So let's say you would have done all your Easter stuff with it, then you're really screwed, right? That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So let me get back.
Luckily, that isn't normally an issue. It never has been, and it hasn't been since. But yeah, stuff like that, it really makes sense for us to do it per order, and especially because we can't. So because once the stamps are made, or I mean, to like if you said, "Oh, go make me this stamp right this minute," it would, we can make you a stamp in 10 minutes from scratch. So.
Wait, no, I'm just kidding. No. I'm just kidding. So,
I love designing. I love designing stamps, and I still love stamps. I hope it is very sincere. I still get excited over, and sometimes I feel kind of silly because I'm always like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this. I love your stamps. And people, I wonder sometimes if people do think if I'm still sincere, but I always have loved stamps, and I still do. I get still like a little kid when they're getting so close to being ready and I can actually stamp them and touch them. And I love seeing the process, but I feel that me, knowing and being comfortable with every step of the way makes me a better, not only person to work with, because I definitely know your perspective, kind of what you're wanting, but also, it's just fun to know how you're going to see your artwork come to life that way. And I always know how excited I was. So I'm always so into it when you get to see your stuff too. Or,
yeah, I think that what is maybe, I don't know if people, no, I think our viewers can probably relate that you buy something online, you see the stamp image, but then you get the stamp and you try it. And, there is a different feeling with it. Like when I think of my designs, of course I have an idea, and either like my cityscape ones, the stroll through the hood. Obviously, I sketched those, and they're hand sketched, and then a lot of the other ones are made, on the computer too. But you have this idea how it will look like, and you maybe even with patterns, you try to tile it up in Photoshop and see how would that look if I stamp this to this and this and this, and would that work, and does that work size-wise? But the real feeling, and that's because I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not an illustrator, the real feel comes when I get the stamp, and then it works as I might have envisioned it, and there's so much more. Like you kind of like the whole possibility is unleashed in that moment when you get that stamp, and it's such a fun and wonderful moment. I think I'm probably not the only one, I hope, that is like that, but I'm always like, KP, when are they coming? When are they coming? When are they coming? Because I kind of like that. I love that moment.
I'm the worst too, because I'm like, get her stamps, or get up their stamps, because I want them in your hands, because I know it's super fun. But I want you to know that it's not different. I still get very excited about not only my own stamps, but yours or Sandra. I mean, when Marilyn Kelly designed some new stamps, I was because she now had not designed, she never submitted any new designs for RubberMoon since I took it over. I've been kind of asking her, and I didn't want to be I wasn't pushy. I just open to you. I would love to see some new designs. And she always said, well, I will. She's older than us, so older than me. I'm a lot older than you, but anyway, she's older than me. So she was just like, well, when sometimes the mind is, or what'd she say? The mind is willing, but the body's weak. So she's like, in time, and I respected that. I was just like, well, I just want you to know it's always open to you. So finally, when she did, I was like a kid in a candy store. I was so excited for her to bring some new and fresh designs to, and just as excited as I was about my own. It's not different,
That is
and
funny.
stamping them for the first time is always, even if I don't do anything with it, I just have to get them and stamp them,
Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't know if anybody ever asked you this, but one thing I would like to bring up is that people will say like, well, so for example, I'll have some things, especially like for my stamp tracks, that are very basic, like lines or little zigzags. And many times people will say, well, I could just draw that. And of course you could, and I could just draw it, but it's not the same aesthetic. A stamped image is different, and and it gives a different look and feel and weight. and texture and everything about it is different. So even though, of course, I'm capable of drawing it because I just did draw it, but
Right, exactly.
I want it in the rubber because in the rubber is where you have so many more possibilities
Right.
for that same exact image, which
Right.
drawing it a second time, you're never going to get the same weight of the hand, the same repeat, so there is something very different and tactile about a stamped image versus a drawn one. And I'm not saying that they both don't have their place. Of course they do, but I often will have people say, well, I could just draw that. And yes, you can, but it's just something about it in rubber, or in the stamp.
I agree. Besides with you, it's also just such a delight to work with Maxi and TC too. So if they should hear it, let them know.
Yeah.
That,
Oh my gosh. I mean, working with Maxi, that is an amazing compliment to me that she'd even want to in the first place.
Yeah.
When she actually came, it's been 2 years now, and said, like, do you have a spot for me? I would really love to work with you. And I was just, oh my God. And, it makes me happy to be able to brag on my daughter because, she's my daughter, but I can't really take credit for the ways that the things that she brings to the table are so amazing. And she's really wonderful to work with. Like, she is never late. She's always she's so unlike me in that way. Like, that's probably why she is like that. She's always on time. She's pretty, organized when it comes to certain things that where I'm not. And then also she is such a good writer, and I never have to worry about, if anything, she checks me, and that's not that easy to come by. Especially she has a great intuition in ways that I really need her to have that. And so it's been just fantastic.
That's awesome. So KP, I know we touched it also a little bit, and besides the love that comes from every step into those stamps, what sets your stamps apart from a mass-produced stamp on the market?
I mean, if you do compare, if you get a stamp that's been, say, that you buy at Michael's, as opposed to ours, you will definitely see the quality, like the cushion. I want to tell you about our cushion on our wood mounted stamps. We use a kind of cushion that we actually, I don't know how to say this. We don't make the cushion, we don't manufacture the cushion, but we do make it, we make our own sticky cushion.
Mm-hmm.
We get cushion that is not sticky, and then we add the stickiness to it, which is a whole nother process. And the reason that we do it is because the cushion that we use, if you pull out a wood mounted RubberMoon, we use a red cushion, and it's very, very dense. Also, it will not mash down. It gives, but it won't, it'll always come back up. You can't indent it. Maybe if you set an anvil on it for a week, you could, but under normal circumstances, it cannot be compressed to where it won't come back up. Other cushions, if you buy pre-sticky cushion, it's different. It's not as dense, and it's not as, I don't know the word, but the other cushions can get dented. So say if you set your stamp down and you set something on top of it, that cushion can get dented and then it won't come back up.
Right.
So many times, TC a few times has said, why don't we just start getting gray cushion? And I'm like, no, we're not going to compromise that because it is the best cushion for wood mounted. And it's a little more expensive and it's more time consuming, but it is so worth it. And I will tell you, honestly, my parents' company, and that was in the 90s, in the early and mid 90s, I still have some stamps from them, and they use the pre-sticky. It is kind of disintegrated, even it's just not, or it's thinner. It's just not good. It shrinks up over time. But our cushion will not do that. So quality is really set apart too.
That is a big fact. And love.
And moonbeams.
And moonbeams, of course. So, one last question. I'm pretty sure there are some viewers that might be interested in and say, you know what, I'm a really, really good in drawing, and I think my designs would be amazing stems. Um, is there anything you want to tell them, to say to them? I know that you have a lot of artists, and it's always just to. I wanted to say that for KP because she's very nice, of course. But every company has always a lot of people probably approaching them and say we want to design for you. So never take that personally. When
Yes.
they
Yeah.
say no, it doesn't have anything to do with your artwork. Oftentimes, it might be a different reason.
Absolutely not.
But
Like, I want to say that I'm so happy that you asked about this, and if people watch all the way through and get to this part, I hope, because I've actually even had to say no to some people that are wonderful, like fantastic artists that I would have loved to have, on the RubberMoon team, so to speak. It's just timing too. Like, I can't, you have to, it kind of has to be measured, like, because it has to be fair to the people too that are already on board. And, and so there's a lot of factors other than just if your art is great. Because
Right.
like I said, I mean, I've had people submit that were wonderful. And even some people, with bigger name, that are known in the industry and stuff like that, but I just couldn't at the time. So
Right.
really, it just, those things really depend. But we do offer a private label program also, where people could have like a plate of their stamps made if they really wanted to sell or to use for themselves. That's something kind of completely separate. But as far as like actually designing and being on the RubberMoon site, we really aren't at, like, well, we are adding some new people this year, but we really don't want to or try to seek out probably more than one or two people new a year. And I don't even, because I don't want to, I probably will not have like hundreds of, designers for RubberMoon. It's nice to keep it kind of small and intimate, if you will. So, again, all those things just depend on lots more than whether it's great art, because
Right,
exactly. There's tons of fantastic people out there. So
I would also add from an artist standpoint, and that's the way how I found you guys too, is think about who you want to be with. And like I knew what kind of a company I would like to have stamps with, but I also, you look at the stamps, you look at the quality, you look at the customer service. I asked around, and shop owners were like, "Oh my God, yeah, you should go with RubberMoon. They're amazing." And that's what you want to hear when you are, as an artist, go look at for. I was obviously looking for a new company because I worked with a different company before, but for whatever reason, I had a very specific idea of what I wanted, and the goal was not having a huge company either. So I had a pretty good idea. So I think for designers, one of the things is like, do your homework a little bit, like meaning homework in where would you want to have your stems being with that company. Let's say you do some really crazy scribbly mixed media design, then maybe a company that mostly does more, let's say, how can I say, like hearts and teddy bears or whatever. That might be not the right company for you, even though you might like their quality or whatever they put out there. So I think one thing is also to look a little bit of what you want.
Yes.
Exactly. What you want. And also I think, as you said, that's a very important part, is if you want to teach with it still, or you want to have your own designs out. Private labeling, of course, is also a possibility where you could contact RubberMoon and see if they could do something like that. I know that sometimes when you teach something specifically, you might want to have a design, and it's important for you to have it for that class or a bigger event or something like that. And it's
Right.
always good to keep that in mind, that is also a possibility, but that there are different ways to approach it besides licensing design.
Well, I laughed because I remember when you first contacted me too, and we had talked about your previous stamps, and I remember being like telling you like, well, we're not like a really big company, and like you were, and I was thinking like you wouldn't want to because of that, and or I don't remember how I worded it. I don't think I said it exactly like that, but I just remember, and you're like, well, that's good because that's not what I'm looking for, It's like, oh my gosh, because I was, really happy and excited.
Yeah, I think for me, it became more important to work with companies where I know the people that are around, and it makes me happy because I love being, in my classes, and all the free companies that I work with are small family-owned businesses, all free, funny enough, are run by women, which, I also like to point out. And I love having that idea of who's behind that company and how much hardship and work goes into the products that are made with my design. It makes me proud to be part of it. And I think that is...
I think that one hand definitely washes the other because
Right.
I feel the same, like, about having artists that I feel I can support and, give them something that helps, all helps you hopefully earn some money, helps you hopefully with your
Right.
creative process, helps you. And it's nice I feel, and with the other companies that I deal with, to be able to call and talk to the actual person that's, not
Right,
necessarily
exactly.
always the owner, but, the person who you're not put on hold for 20 minutes. You're not, sent to this person and that person. You get to actually.
Yeah, that this supports a whole family, or like an actual human being. There's this nice saying out there: when a small business gets an order, there's an actual person making a happy dance. It might be not that, but it's kind of like in that way, right? So,
RubberMoon angel gets its wings.
And that's exactly, I think, how both of us feel like when you get an order. Like, it's not just like a number, that floats around. There's actual people like being happy, fulfilling that because they know that brings them, joy and also their living. Do you hear my cat?
Get to eat today. No, I'm kidding.
Right. My cat is like, buy stems, buy stems.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, KP, for taking the time to tell us a little bit about...
Thank you so much. And I hope, that people like to get to see all the little behind the scenes ways that we, our little, what do we call them? Stamping elves make all this.
Yeah, and if you want to follow KP and check out her website, the company website with all the amazing stems that we talked about it. If you haven't done it yet, you should do it now. It's rubbermoon.com. You can find them also on Facebook and on Instagram and I don't know, everywhere. And KP also teaches herself, so you can check the website out, check out their artists and their rubber stems. And yeah, thank you for joining and have a great day.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.